Welcome to the Midweek Mailbag, your Detroit Lions midweek podcast, where we, of course, answer your Detroit Lions questions that you submit to us online, typically through Twitter, but also we take them from some of our Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers as well. This week, as we are, somewhere around 3 weeks until the start of training camp, inching our way there. We have a lot of varied questions this week. We're going to talk a little about running backs at the top. We're going to get into some talk at linebacker. We're going to talk about just kind of like philosophically with where the team's at. So jam-packed show full of really good questions this week. My name, by the way, is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the producer over at Pride of Detroit. You can find me at Detroit Online on socials. With me, as always, to help answer these questions is the managing editor of Pride of Detroit, is the machine, is at Erik on Twitter. It's Erik Schlitt. Buddy, what's going on?
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
Not too bad. Hanging in there.
All right.
Starting to lose my mind a little bit in this offseason. This, when you leave me 5 months without any sort of like structure to my weeks, I tend to get a little crazy. And so I feel more and more out of sorts.
Well, we're a couple weeks away from being inundated with content and lots of information to process. So we just got to get to that point, right? So let's entertain the audience.
Entertain and inform, hopefully.
Deal.
I mean, maybe we should just shoot for one or the other.
We can multitask. That's multitask.
All right.
We're all right.
As I promised, we're going to start off with 3 separate questions about the running back position, all of which I think are good and fair questions. So let's start here with co-manager John, who asks, given the success of Gibbs when Montgomery was injured, do you foresee an uptick in share of the workload? I know some lingering training camp injuries kept Gibbs from taking the next steps as a receiver coming out of the backfield. Do you see that role increasing this year? And that's a favorite topic of mine. But let's start with the whole Gibbs, was fantastic down the stretch last year when Montgomery was out with his injury. Do you see kind of an uptick in maybe the workload that Gibbs gets this year? And I know you kind of dove into some of the numbers earlier this week with your training camp preview. So this is like a layup for you. This is an alley to your hoop.
Yeah. I actually had the same thought. And I wondered if there would be a stronger push to get Gibbs more touches. And so I went and I looked back at the numbers because he did really well when the 3 games down the stretch when Montgomery was injured. Lots of touchdowns, lots of yards. Like he was a really fierce competitor, and there was not a lot of answers for him. What I noticed, though, looking at the games when Montgomery was not injured, is that they tended to give Gibbs more opportunities to get on the field, but they didn't necessarily give him touches in those opportunities. So on average, he outsnapped Montgomery about 35 to 28 on a game when both guys were healthy, but they both had exactly 16.3 touches in those games. And so it points to the fact that they really have a true 50-50 split or that's their goal, right?
Yeah.
Will that shift? I don't know if it will. I think there's going to be situational games, like game situations where you're going to lean on one guy or another. For example, when they're trailing, they tend to lean on Gibbs a little bit more. When they do want to go to the passing game, Gibbs tends to provide them that option. That gives them another speed element. But then there's other situations where, like against the Bears, they, of course, gave a lot more to Montgomery in those games because he's got a little bit more incentive, right? Like he doubled Gibbs's touches against the Bears, right? Yeah. So I do think it's going to be situational. Against the Packers, Montgomery almost doubled Gibbs' output as well. So it's got to be situational. I think the target is 50-50, but I think the second part of what John is asking is really what could be the separator, right? Will he get more involved in the passing game? Because he already is more involved than Montgomery. And Montgomery's, good as it is. But I really think that passing element could be the key to getting Gibbs more chances with the ball.
Yeah, I mean, philosophically, we know the Lions want both of their running backs at their best in January, and that means a significant split of the workload. That's not going to go away. There's not going to be a situation in which Jahmyr Gibbs becomes the clear RB1, getting 300 touches, 300 rushes a year, that sort of thing. It's just not in the cards for him. It's not what the Lions want, and it's not really what most teams want. There are really only one or two teams that are willing to workhorse their guy, for better or for worse. I mean, maybe you could argue that it's worth it with a guy like Saquon Barkley. It's worth it for a guy like Derrick Henry. And I can understand why maybe there's some frustration from Lions fans who they look at Jahmyr Gibbs and they're like, he could have Saquon Barkley production. He could have a 2,000 yard season. He could have this and that. But I think this is a sounder strategy, not only for lasting from September to January, but lasting from year one of your contract into a second contract, right? How many times do we talk about, and we're going to talk about this in a question or two, how dangerous it is to give a NFL running back a second contract because there is a steep fall off. Well, a lot of that data is taken from a time in which you were giving a running back 20 some carries a game. And if you have that cut in half or 60% of that, maybe that means you're stretching out the ability to keep these guys active and at their peak into their late 20s, into their 30s. And so I like the strategy. And I know the question from John wasn't like, hey, why isn't Jahmyr Gibbs RB1 and getting 30 touches a game? I don't think most fans want that anymore. Maybe fantasy football fans do, but I think most Lions fans probably don't want that and understand that the workload needs to be shared. The question is, how much do you tilt it in Gibbs' favor? And I do think there's going to be a small tilt there, but I'm with you. I think in general, this team is going to want to keep it as close to 50-50 in touches as they can, because they both bring a dynamic part of the run game that the other one maybe doesn't bring as much of.
I do think one of the things that gets often overlooked with Saquon and like Derrick Henry is that people look at those as like feature backs, but they often don't think about the fact that they both have mobile quarterbacks that offset some of that workload. And while they're still getting a higher amount than a true split like you see in Detroit, there is that element to the game that allows them to, not be the guy that defenses are keen on all the time.
All right, we move from RB1, RB2, or RB1A, RB1B, to RB3, because next question here comes from WRX Velzin on Twitter, asks, how many snaps at running back does Vaki get during this season?
Man, this is a tough one.
This is a tough one.
Because I also wrote an article on Vaki a week and a half ago or so, and I tried to highlight in there the fact that they have like a goal for him. Like he needs to get a certain amount of experience, a certain amount of reps, a certain amount of touches before he gets to the point where they're going to start including him more. How far down that path he is really a bit of an unknown. Yeah. But you can also look at like the touches he got last year, and there was only I think he had 9, right? Yeah. He only had 9 touches.
And only 26 snaps, by the way. So it's kind of like a high percentage of when he was actually out there. The ball was coming his way.
He was situational, got in on 2-minute drills, yes. And stuff like that. So the ball, and look, in the preseason, we saw it too. That game against KC, he caught the ball 4 times in a 2-minute drill, right? Yeah,
right in a row, yep.
And so I think he can be used situationally like that.
Yeah.
I don't, in my mind, as we sit today, I don't know if he's ready to jump Craig Reynolds, because Craig Reynolds is so consistent and they know what they're getting in Craig Reynolds. I believe Vaki's upside is larger and he will eventually jump him on the depth chart. I just don't know if that's going to be year 2. I'd like it to be. I'd like him to all of a sudden be like, oh, look, behind the scenes, we did all this, and now he's trusted, and we're ready to unleash him because he has natural instincts, he has natural hands, he has an athleticism element to his game that Craig doesn't. Craig is steady, and we know what we're getting with Craig. And he brings all kinds of things to the game that make him unique and an important player on the Lions roster. But Vaki has a higher upside. It's just a matter of when is he going to reach that, and will that be this year? I don't know. So, how many touches per game? I'm still on the low side. I still think it's going to be situational, which means there's going to be stretches where he gets nothing, and there's going to be stretches where he gets like 4, right? And so it's going to be kind of be like that. And at the end of the season, he may average a snap or a touch and a half a game, 2 touches a game, kind of like correct. But if all 4 are healthy, it's going to be low, and that's okay because they have a really dynamic, starting duo.
Right, and he'll be contributing plenty on special teams, right?
Oh, a ton.
We can't lose the value of that, because even if that's all that Sione Vaki turns out to be, an elite special teamer that can be a 4-core for you for 8 years, like that's still kind of worth the draft capital that you spent to get him.
Yep.
It's funny when you were laying out the battle at RB3, it almost mirrors exactly, at least in my mind, the OT3 battle, where it's like, okay, Sione Vaki, Giovanni Manu, your developmental guys that right now, as we sit, we don't really know where they stand. We don't know how much Sione Vaki developed as a running back last year. We don't know how much Giovanni Manu developed as an offensive tackle last year. What we do know is that the current guys that are at OT3 and RB3 are dependable. Maybe not outstanding, but dependable. Guys that have been with the team for a ton of years, are hard workers, are guys that can fill in a pinch. And so I think both those, you could see both of those players get overturned by the young guys, with a much higher ceiling in Vaki and Manu. But like, it's hard for us to sit here right now and say, yeah, for sure, Vaki is RB3. Yeah, for sure, Manu is OT3. The biggest difference, in my opinion, is that I think Manu has a track to potentially be a starter. I don't know if he'll eventually get there. Vaki, not so much. But you kind of stole my other point, which was going to be like, I do see him, Vaki, being a guy that you could see end a second quarter in a way that we saw him in the preseason, in a way that we saw, what was the Theo Riddick, right? Like that was kind of Theo Riddick's role too.
Sure. Sure.
And so, but beyond that, it's just hard to see him getting on the field much, particularly if your RB1 and 2 stay healthy. So it's going to be relatively limited, but again, like Craig Reynolds' role is relatively limited. So even if he overtakes Craig Reynolds, you're still only talking about 4 snaps a game at most, right? Like,
right.
It's not going to be a big role.
Yeah. The Craig saw a month with no touches, then 6 touches in a blowout against the Cowboys.
Right.
No touches, and then 3 touches in a blowout against the Titans. Again, no touches, 2 touches in a blowout against the Jaguars, and then no touches until Montgomery gets injured. So like that's RB3 right in the current system. Now when he gets injured, you see an uptick. You see 5, 10 touches a game. Whereas with Vaki, he got his touches against the Jaguars, also that same blowout, and then he got his, like you said, in the 2-minute drill, when Montgomery was injured. A 2-minute drill at the end of the first half, exactly the same scenario that we saw against KC in the preseason. So it's something he can do. He adds the trick play element to special teams as well, which makes him a lot of fun for that. But yeah, I mean, if you can lean on Montgomery and Gibbs, and just, it's a luxury to have a consistent player in Reynolds and a high upside developmental player in Vaki. And it's why many NFL teams are envious of what Detroit has.
Yeah. And I'm looking at snap counts here just to see if Craig got out there a lot. And he had 96 total offensive snaps last year, but just under 70 or 60 of that, just over 60 of that, I should say, all happened in the last 3 games when Montgomery was injured. When three, but that being said, like, he only had 3 games in which he did not play a single offensive snap. So like there is a role there, even if you're not getting the ball, that could be something that Vaki, I guess elevates to this season. All right, last running back question before we move on to a different topic comes from Old Man Muppet, who has projecting a bit down the road here, but are you comfortable with Gibbs dramatically resetting the running back market as a Lion, or would you try to trade him to avoid paying a huge running back contract? I think the Lions will pay him if he performs like we all expect. What would you all do?
Last week when we did our PODD, we talked about the fact that there was some players on the roster that you are inclined to just watch them for entertainment purposes. Like who are the guys that are must watch? You go back and who could you watch by themselves the whole game?
Worth the
and
price
Gibbs,
of admission. Yeah.
Right. Gibbs was one of those, one of the 5, I think, that we basically settled on. So yes, I am inclined to be ready to pay Gibbs. I know that goes against traditional logic with paying running backs, and I get it. I think the tread is going to be low on Gibbs, and so he's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same like level of contract, or it's not going to be like It's not going to be the same type of second contract guy, right? Like it's not like a second contract for Saquon or like Derrick Henry, but it's. I believe you can pay him at a higher level or near those guys, because he has that potential. He just won't have the wear and tear. So he'll actually should be able to hold off that kind of like end of career wall that most running backs hit. So I'm inclined to give him a big deal. I also know that with that comes the fact that you're probably moving on from Montgomery, and you're going to have to then come up with some sort of replacement to cut his snaps. And that could be a combination of like a rookie back that goes with Gibbs plus a Vaki development and stuff like. And I know it would completely change the dynamic in how the Lions approach. But I think Gibbs is a special enough player that he's worth considering giving a second running back to, or contract to, at running back position.
Yeah, it's interesting. You could kind of almost see the Lions doing what they did 2 years ago, which was sign David Montgomery to a big deal and then draft Jahmyr Gibbs. And everyone's like, oh my God, not only are you paying a running back, you're drafting one high. What are you doing? Now now could be just kind of the reverse, where it's like, okay, now we're paying Jahmyr Gibbs, but we also really value that 1B spot to a point where, hey, we got to go invest and do that. And if you would have asked me this question 3 years ago, I would have given you a very different answer that I would give it now. But I think it's the right move. I mean, I think the Lions have not shown me the light necessarily, but shown that it can work. And it is certainly not just them now too, right? There are other teams that are investing in running backs, paying running backs, realizing that this is where the current trend of the NFL is. And we talk about it a lot on this podcast, where when teams go light and, heavy on your defensive backs, you go heavy and run up the middle. You pound the football. And is it going to always stay like that? No. At some point, it's going to fall back, right? People are going to start getting bigger and meaner and stronger on their defensive fronts and offensive fronts. And then you'll go back to, hey, let's pass it a whole bunch more and spread it out further and all that sort of stuff. And so, and like I said earlier, and like you kind of reiterated there too, I think a lot of the data when it says, hey, don't pay running backs a second contract, we were living in an era of workhorse backs. We were living in an era of players that the tread on the tire is gone by the time they reach 28. And that's not going to be the case with Jahmyr Gibbs. And so, I never would have thought I'd be in the camp of paying a running back $20+ million a year, but Gibbs is that important to what the Lions want to do. And I feel like they're already earmarking that money. I think and to be clear, like Old Man Muppet was also like, hey, I think the Lions are going to do this. I'm just looking at what you guys want. And it's it's very hard for me to see someone replacing Jahmyr Gibbs' skill set in an instant. That's really what it comes down to, right? I know I've been running backs don't matter. It's all about your offensive line, and there is part of me that still believes that to a certain degree. But Gibbs has been a little bit different, right? I think maybe the most compelling argument that could be made that running backs do matter is just looking at the Detroit Lions 3 years ago versus now. And yes, the offensive line has certainly gotten better in some spots, but it goes back to was it Greg Rosenthal, who was like, I don't really get, upgrading Jamal Williams and
Swift
to Gibbs and Dave Montgomery. And I mean, we've all seen how different those two are, how much of an upgrade those two players are. And so I think when it comes down to it, Gibbs is among the most irreplaceable players on the team. And again, just hearing those words come out of my mouth, Mr. Running Backs don't matter, is tough. It's sometimes you got to swallow your pride and admit you may have been mistaken. I'm not going to say wrong. Mistaken seems like a better word.
Listen, I tell you what, this is a business that we are in where people have an opinion and they stick to it to the point that they are going to die on a hill. And so credit to you for
being wrong
adaptable.
and then admitting I'm wrong.
I said for being adaptable, because I'm going to be honest. There are so many national analysts that are out there that still think Goff is the kid that came out of Cal,
right,
and not this seasoned veteran that's gone through turmoil and and overcome all of these obstacles. Like, people get stuck in their ways, and so I didn't think we would get to this point where no, honestly, because you were such a staunch advocate. But again, I think you've recognized how the NFL changes, and a lot of people don't do that, right? And that's also one of the things that I think makes Gibbs so unique is that if the NFL changes and it goes back to where you're going to have to throw a lot more, Gibbs can do that. Like, that's what makes him unique. And the Lions have, the part of their player acquisition strategy is finding guys that are so unique that they can adapt to anything. And Gibbs is one of those guys. He is a franchise running back that they're not going to wear down, because he will just murder you in week 18 and put up 4 touchdowns against you when you're, when the division's on the line, the number 1 seed's on the line, and he just goes over and over and over. And then he becomes such a force when you need him to be. And so look, it's a evolving world, and it's nice to see that we at Pride of Detroit are evolving with it.
But just make it like a 3-year deal. Don't
I
go too far down the line.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to sneak one more in here so it isn't just running back talk in the first segment here. This one comes from Elliot Battle, who asks, who is a non-starting contributor that if they get more snaps than anticipated means the year is going really well? Alternatively, who is a non-starting contributor that if they get more snaps than anticipated, you feel the year is not going well? And then not non-quarterback for that answer. You can't just say Hendon Hooker because that's an obvious one.
Ugh. So we are preparing for our 90-man roster rankings, right?
Yes.
As a site, and our analysts and writers, we're all going through the roster, and we're all kind of coming up with our own rankings individually. And my strategy in developing that 90-man roster was basically to say, who do I think is going to make the roster, or who do I think is going to start?
Yeah,
because those starters are going to be more important, and then who's going to make the roster is my next kind of set of players. And so when I got outside of the starters, this is where we're at. Who is a non-starter that I think is going to be significant? Now, the twist here is which one means it's good and which one means it's bad. And that's where this question gets tricky. Um, because I think the most important non-starter on the roster is probably Levi Onwuzurike. Um,
Interesting.
of like the non like
Yeah.
established starters, because he's so versatile, position versatile. You can play him in
Yeah.
multiple spots. You can do a lot of things with him. And so Levi to me is the guy who I think is going to be getting the most non-starting reps. Now, is that good or bad? I think it's that's really dependent. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things that makes Levi unique is, hey, if you're struggling on the interior, maybe he's getting more snaps because you're struggling. At
Yeah.
the same time, you could just be rotating that defensive line through because it's working so well. So like, I don't know. It's a hard question to analyze because I think you can go kind of both ways. And as I kind of go down my pecking order of like which non-starters would be coming in, I don't know who's going to play that can really like satisfy, the question. It's a good
Right.
question, but it's hard to justify.
I think
It,
the not going well part is probably a little bit easier to answer because you think of guys that they're like small rotational pieces right now, but that's all they are. And if they're playing a lot, it means either like injuries have gone terribly wrong or something. So like I'm not trying to pile on the guy, but a guy like Pat O'Connor is a guy that like you don't want to have a big role this year, but he's going to most likely have a role, assuming he makes the team, which is not a guarantee.
mhm.
Um, and I think there's a lot of guys along that defensive line where you could be like, okay, like I like you at a 5 to 10 snap per game role. I don't love you at a 20 to 30 snap per game role. And I think Pat O'Connor is probably one of those. I mean, Al-Qadim Muhammad is kind of the same way, where it's like, yeah, you're going to provide okay play, but you don't want to get into a situation that you were last year where he's playing 40, 50 snaps. Like it's not the best role for him.
Yeah, I think with the injury bug, you could do it. You could make that argument almost all positions,
True.
right? I think if you exclude the injury bug and a guy that's just earning reps, it's probably because like they're improving.
Right.
So a guy like Tesla, like if all of a
Yeah,
sudden he's getting reps, that would be a good thing
I agree.
because especially if there's not an injury, that means he's
Yes.
developing, he's exceeding expectations. So like if he's all of a sudden getting reps and he's getting on the field, I'm like, okay, this is we're gonna see how high this kid's ceiling can go because he realistically shouldn't be. He
Yeah.
should be wide receiver 5 to start the season, and then he should slowly work his way up. But if he's getting 12, 15 reps right off the bat, that's good news.
Another one that might be considered good news, and I think it's a mild long shot that this happens, but if Miles Frazier works his way into the starting lineup, and I think the only way that happens is if
He,
Graham's
he beats Graham.
he
Yeah.
would have to beat Graham, which
Yeah.
I think
Which
that would
would
be good
mean
news. I think that's good news, right? I think Graham is good enough where he should be a starter on this team, but if Miles Frazier
yes,
passes him, that is Miles Frazier is looking
exceeding.
outstanding.
Right. I'm with
He's
you on
not
that.
he's
It,
not
it would
exactly a
take
rotational guy right now, so it's kind of
right.
breaking the rules of the question. But I'm just saying, like if your offensive line at any point in the season without an injury is Miles Frazier, Tate Ratledge, and Christian Mahogany, that's great. That's really good
Yeah.
news. That could be your interior offensive line for the future.
It would mean if Frazier's starting, it would mean two good things. It would mean Tate has played better than Graham at center, and then Frazier has played better than Graham at guard, and both those things are going to be hard to do.
Yes.
So yeah, if Frazier ends up in the starting lineup, it means two things are working better than you expected.
Right. All right. With that, let's take a break. When we come back, more of your Detroit Lions questions here in the Midweek Mailbag. We'll be right back. All right. What's up, everybody? Thanks for dropping in on what is it, Wednesday morning? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's truly midweek. We did it. Let me go through some alerts here, and then we can answer some of your guys' questions, either on YouTube or Twitch. Feel free to fill up the chat. Let's start here with D Parente, 26 months subscribed on Twitch, says, always forget to come over here to spend Jeff Bezos' money. Appreciate that, as always, D Parente.
Do that.
AGT Smith, thank you for the 23 months subscribed channel, says, can it be football season yet?
It can be.
It's football month season, if that counts. Ryan Sting, thank you for subscribing over on YouTube. Luxtables 29 months says, my favorite midweek mailbag. Don't like how you spelled those words. Peace Prowler, thank you for the follow on Twitch. Lion's Eyed 8 months says, how much job security does Kelvin Shepherd have? If you look at the QBs he has to face this year, it feels possible that his defense could struggle given the lack of his experience, but it also seems unfathomable that Campbell would fire him in his first year as coordinator. If the defense is costing us games, do we just bite the bullet for a year?
I would be surprised if he bailed on Shepard at any point. It would take it would have to be not just that the defense is struggling, but there would have to be something Aubrey Pleasant like going on.
Yeah.
Like, this is our game plan and you're not doing it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not following what Dan Campbell is telling you to do. That's what it would take, I think, to get rid of Shep. And I don't foresee that happening in any way.
No.
Like, with Pleasant, like, he was a good coach, but like, his players were not falling in line with the with the adjustments that Aaron Glenn made coming out of that bye that year. And it cost him his job because the players were not doing what they were supposed to do. And so it would take like something out of bounds, that like out of what we would expect, in order for, I think, them to move on.
A Braden Coombs like mental lapse.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, my gosh. I liked Braden. I wish he never did. I wish that silliness never happened.
Bjork kind of brought up the point that I was going to bring up a little bit, in that, like, he obviously gave Aaron Glenn a pretty long slack, right? The defense was not great under Aaron Glenn for the first 2 years, but he saw the vision, he saw the leadership qualities that Aaron Glenn had, and knew that it was eventually going to turn itself around. Now, the stakes were lower in 2021, right? The stakes were lower in 2022 for the the team could suck a little bit, because the expectation, whether they want to admit it or not, was the team was going to suck.
Talent level was lower.
Yes.
Right.
Kelvin Shepherd doesn't have that going for him. You know, he needs to succeed right away. And so there's certainly going to be more pressure on him now than there was on AG in year one for him. But I think Dan Campbell knows enough about Kelvin Shepherd and trusts him and respects him enough as a leader to give him time. And hopefully that doesn't mean biting the bullet for an entire season. Hopefully that doesn't mean, dealing with a bad defense every single week. But yeah, I mean, it's not, he's good. He's got a tough job. That schedule is not easy. That schedule and quarterbacks are going to give him a big challenge. But, if they win games 34-31, no one's going to complain too much.
It's interesting. Like, when we did the 90-man, like 4 years ago, like it was like mostly offensive players, like at the top.
Yeah.
And I still think it's offense heavy.
Sure.
Like, for example, 8 of the top 13 players on my list are offensive players. But what's weird is that players 14 through 20 are all defenders for me. So if you look at the top 20, it's actually 12 defenders in it. And surprisingly. So it's...
When you say 8 of 13 are on offense, please tell me that none of the other 5 are special teams.
No, I didn't get a special teams guys come in much later.
Okay, because, I mean, we are not that far removed from Jack Fox being in our top 10 every year.
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember. I was a little higher on Jack this year than I think I wanted to be, but I really like Jack Fox, so I was okay with it.
Yes.
There's so many things he does well, and I felt okay with where I ended up slotting him.
For the team that punts the fewest in the league, I can't, in good faith, have a punter in the team's top 20.
He's still a Pro Bowler, though. Oh, and I agree. He's not my top 20 either. But, I mean, he's really good.
He is. Not trying to hate on him in particular, just his position.
It's the position.
Not, and that's not his fault.
You know, he's got other elements to his game. You know, he's got to be able to throw the ball. Quarterback. Yeah, he's got to be. He's got a hold, right?
Hey, ask Tony Romo if that's easy.
It's you.
Duckline 29 months subscribed on Twitch says, "Hey, at least I'm not 30 yet. See you during football season." Sammy Boy's also 29 months subscribed to the channel, says excited for football soon. And OJ McCord, 17 months subscribed to the channel, says don't tell Chris and Ryan, but the main show is the best show. Appreciate y'all. And just about every one of those subscriptions were Twitch Prime subscriptions. In fact, I think every single one of them were Twitch Prime subscription. And the reason I mention that is because that didn't cost any of those people a single cent. All they had to do was link their Amazon Prime account. If you're already an Amazon Prime subscriber, go over to Twitch, create a free account, link those two accounts together, and they will allow you to subscribe to any Twitch feed every single month. You get one sub per month. It does not automatically renew. So if you sub to us last month, it is not automatically renewed. Come over here and renew it. Doesn't cost you a thing. And it supports us in a way that keeps the lights on. So if you're over on YouTube and you like YouTube more, just go over to Twitch once a month. Re-up that sub, then jump right back to YouTube. It's easy. It's easy. All right. There are some good questions in the chat, so let me scroll back up and make sure I get some of those. Where? Okay, there we go. Argantis asks, how much do the talking heads discredit Dan Campbell's influence and ability with X's and O's?
Most of them.
Well, how much influence do you feel like he actually has?
How much influence does Dan Campbell have on the team?
On like the X's and O's of the team. Obviously, this
more
is
than I think he will. More than I think he'll admit, right?
Probably.
Yeah, we always talk about how he's not a micromanager and he lets his coaches do their jobs. At the same time, I think he's in those meetings and he's dropping suggestions or hints and he's finessing things the way that he wants them to go. And then even on game day, I think he's like, he's listening to those conversations as well. So, it's not like you never see him taking his helmet off or his headset off and going over and talking to like Jared Goff and telling him. He lets Mark Brunell handle that, right? He's constantly overseeing the entire team, and so he's listening to all those play calls. And I 100% think he's making suggestions along the way.
I think his impact is more like macro when it comes like I don't know how much he's actually like developing plays, calling plays, things like that, but the one thing that we've heard from a couple players, both current and former, were like he would come in on Wednesday and say this is what they're going to try to do and this is what we're going to do to stop it, and be 100% right.
Yeah, that's credit to the game scouts.
Right. There's credit to the game scouts for sure, but I think.
But Dan watches the film and he checks it.
And his ability just to know, like, okay, if this team does this well, this is what we're going to do to stop it, and setting that tone and like setting that overall game plan to the coordinators to then build out the plays, build out the personnel, all that sort of stuff. That's where I think he has the most influence, and obviously that's extremely important. You're talking about like the entire game plan.
Yeah. Yeah, he establishes the ideology of what they want to accomplish that game, and then the coordinators build game plans to fit that.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, so I think, does he get credit for that? Absolutely not, because people are still stuck in the introductory speech from 5 years ago,
5.
where they think it's dude. When I was watching that Jared Goff, like those little clips that they've been showing, I was like, he's been with the team 4 years now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's been that young. Um, but yeah, like there's still people that think he's dumb. Like there's still people that think he's like put the jaw on my mouth and go for it on fourth down. I don't care what happens, just run it. Like there's a reason he makes Matt LaFleur scared.
You can do that again, huh? You saw the
Just in
positive
case anyone
comments.
didn't see it.
Yeah. uh, Aaron over on YouTube asks, what do you think it means that the Lions chose Morton instead of Tanner for the OC job? Do you think he does well in New York? Probably not right away because it's not a great Jets roster right now. But I think of all the coaching hires, that was probably the most surprising development for me, because I felt that was Tanner's job to lose, and maybe it was just a matter of like I was gonna say maybe it's a matter of Dan Campbell doing Aaron Glenn a favor, but I don't think he would do that. Like if he wanted Tanner to be the offensive coordinator, he'd be the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
And we
keep in mind that Tanner learned from John Morton, right? Like,
sure.
Right, and like. You could get the up and coming guy, or you could take the guy who taught, a lot of the basics to the up and coming guy. And so,
do you think there was a feeling of, if we go young here, it could be too much of like a
two young coordinators?
Well, that and just the fact that, like, I don't know, if you go young, there's going to be an adjustment period. This guy hasn't been in the league long. He, may not be as advanced at running rooms, talking in front of people, things like that. And they didn't like Tanner. I should say, Morton is kind of the don't rock the boat as much option. Like everything is going right so much on offense. Let's not rock the boat and just go with the safer option, I guess. Is that
I agree
fair to say? Maybe is what was the thinking there?
I agree.
Yeah.
Tanner has a unique background. Like if people don't know it, like, he learned under Harbaugh, like he learned under Campbell and Ben, obviously, of course, but like he has a unique perspective on experiences. So it wouldn't surprise me if Tanner's eventually successful. I just don't know if he would have been able to be successful off the jump and maintain, which is why I agree with you on that, right? And in my mind, that was the difference between going with Morton over Tanner. Was maybe the upside's not as good, but that's steadiness. Like we talked about it at running back 3, at offensive tackle 3. Like they love someone that they know they can count on to do this. And sometimes that's what you need to get you to the next step, as opposed to betting on the guy who's learning on the job. Sometimes you need to go to New York and where you're going to have a couple years to kind of figure things out.
Never thought we would go John Morton is Craig Reynolds is Dan Skipper.
Yeah. There's a theme.
Yeah. I did mention this a podcast or two ago, and I am still kind of curious if things would have played out that way, if there would be a different perception. But I do feel like if they had gone with Tanner, maybe there'd be a little bit less of a negative perception of the coaching overturn this offseason.
100%.
Just because, like, whether people want to admit it or not, like, there is an ageism thing to this, right? There is we love the young up and coming offensive minds. We don't love the retread 70, 60. I'm sorry, I don't know how old John Morton is. Probably not 70. I think there's a little bit less optimism around hiring an older guy that's been around for 20 years.
I think of it like this. My kids have a Christmas tree. All right. And around their Christmas tree, there is a train set that is reliable. It's older than I am. Like it was got my dad had it, right? Like it was, and it works. It's great. Like you have to finesse the wires a little bit, but it's dependable. But the kids, they see that shiny new toy and they think it's going to be better, right? And so they want you to go get that new one, and they want to see, does it have all the bells and whistles? Is it going to work as right? But you know what? The old one runs, you plug it in the wall and you hook up the wires to the thing itself. New one runs on batteries, right? So like how long are those batteries going to last if you leave the train running the whole night, right? And so like it's very interesting.
They don't make toys like they used to.
But nowadays everyone wants the shiny new stuff.
Yep.
And they're willing to discard the dependable one that does the job and can get things going. And so it's interesting. And that's a metaphor for society.
Sure, why not?
My phone works great, but but there's a new one.
But you're an iPhone. You're at iPhone 6 right now. Is that right?
I'm at 11 still. Everyone else has a new one, but I think 15 or something like that. I was old man yelling at the clouds here.
Very much so. Have I missed any other questions? I don't think I have. A lot of people are also mentioning, rightfully so, David Shaw and his addition, how that can certainly help with Morton, considering they go back almost 3 decades.
Yeah.
Besties. Always
Another
good to have besties.
Harbaugh connection.
Yep. Lost Oceans, for some reason, you followed again. What happened there, Lost Oceans? Did you unfollow for a while? Why am I getting a notification that you followed Lost Oceans? What happened? Joe Handel, thank you for following as well. And St. Bob, 26 months subscribed on Twitch, says 2 midweek mailbags in 3 days, perfect for the dog days of summer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we didn't drop it till Monday because
you held it.
We were overloaded.
You dangled it over people.
I did. Yeah. I like exactly, and it's good. Now you have extra content for the holiday weekend. Y'all got Friday off. Now you got something to do while you stay inside, air conditioned. I'm sure.
No, there's a lot of people that are going to be hosting 4th of July parties, and they're outside, cleaning up the yard. And
I mean, screw the Bruce Springsteen America music you play on 4th of July. Just throw on the PODD midweek mailbag. That gets the people moving.
Yeah, I know my kids. They typically like to swim with this podcast on in the background.
That's right.
I just put it on repeat, and they're just like, yeah,
it's just like, oh, Dad's going. Here.
Yeah,
you just kick it inside and I don't know, watching 2026 draft prospects. That's what I imagine you're doing in your free time. I mean, we could jump right back into it if you guys want. I'm not seeing a lot of questions, which is fine. I'm okay with that. Get on with our days. Arthur Cardar came out and saw a shadow. We'll have 6 more weeks of fireworks.
Did you hear about the fireworks warehouse or whatever that caught on fire?
Nope.
Like Laura saw something about it this morning.
Mm-mm.
She said it was interesting. She said I assume
okay,
because but I guess they had some imagine it's just
it's
a
very funny visual, which is why I ask if everyone's okay, because
right.
I want to kind of joke about it, because there is something inarguably funny about a fireworks bunker going off.
Fireworks are dangerous, man. People, I know they sell them to everybody, but little gunpowder or whatever they use. It's not gunpowder, but you know what it is.
Whatever. It's
Yeah.
something. We
But
ain't scientists.
it's dangerous. You know,
Yeah.
there's local people around here that have hurt themselves.
I don't mess around with it myself. That was
You
always
know what?
like my dad and uncle's job. You guys light the fireworks. I kick back on
Yeah.
and watch them. Never had any interest in doing that.
I have a thing that I do for like my kids and the neighbors and stuff like that. But like I'm overboard with like ridiculousness. Like I have like a I have like a huge tub of water, and like as soon as I like light them, and then they diffuse themselves out,
You
and
throw it in there.
I'm like I'm dunking them in the water.
We don't.
I'm
We
like,
don't need any
yeah,
late shots.
yeah, yeah. I don't like that. So I'm not surprised JMO loves fireworks. I'm sure there's like 90% of the roster loves fireworks, and the 10% that don't are the ones that have young children or or dogs that don't
True.
like fireworks. Yeah.
I just like when people are like having what's the name
Roman
of like,
candles.
Roman candle battles. That's when
Yeah.
I'm just like, you guys have
Oh,
got
yeah.
to stop. Please.
The
don't do
like
this.
like the the I think you should or the from Detroiters is when they did.
Yes.
They didn't do it. I think you
Yes.
should leave. They did Detroiters.
The baseball firework.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's I've seen people get hit by those and I've seen them backfire. You know, like you know how many times you see those like reveal part like those baby reveals where the guy holds
Yeah.
the popper the wrong way and
Yes.
shoots himself in the stomach or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or yeah. I've seen someone do that with the candles too. Hold them the wrong way and they just start peppering themselves like yeah. Ugh.
Not to take things into a completely different direction, but my favorite gender reveal thing that I think I've ever seen was it was like an ornament and the wife was pitching it to the husband to swing
Sure.
at it and break. And
Always is.
he took the pitch. And it just hit the ground and exploded.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's a ball.
I never the successful ones are never good. It's always the fails that
Yeah.
that people
Yeah.
are the most
Right. No one wants to
interested
see someone cut into the kink and then it's just like pink. Like it's not going to make the internet. No one's going to share that video. I mean, it's probably what you should do. Something like that.
in. Right. You know what I do? I just asked the doctor when they
Oh.
did the ultrasound, and I was like, "Hey, do you know what is it going to be a boy or girl?" And they're like, "Oh, you get nothing but girls, Eric. Sorry, just always girls."
Did
I
you
was
ever
like,
keep
"All
it
right,
a
cool."
secret? Were you one of those
No.
people that kept it a secret?
My OCD would not allow me to do that because I need to be prepared. Like I need to paint the bedroom, and like I need to have the right colors. I need to have the right, uh, clothes ready to go, and it was I we had it all laid out,
Mm-hmm.
and so the nice thing is that having three girls, you get to recycle some of
That's what I was gonna
the
say. Yeah.
clothes,
Yeah.
especially not all of them because they wear through things like pants stuff, but like you
Poor G
save
is,
like
is third generation clothes.
on some stuff, yeah, but you save like a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
when we had our thing when we found out the Georgia was going to be a girl, the first Laura was like, "Oh, you don't get your boy," and I was like, "No, we just saved $3,000." I was like, "Yeah, good."
Hey, I like that practical thought process. All right, we got two questions here. Go ahead.
Go.
I'll let you finish.
No,
your
I was
thought.
gonna say she's my little spark plug athlete. So she's
There you go. I think I
she's
heard
got
her a
arm
little
on
bit in the
her.
first segment, by the way.
Dude, I don't know. She's.
She didn't seem like she was having a good time with something.
I think they're getting. I think they left.
Oh.
So I think they were
Okay.
probably getting ready to leave, and who knows? All right.
I was afraid you were
questions.
gonna have to get up and get out of here.
No.
I was ready to restart the whole podcast. Argantis asked, is there any perceived weakness on the Lions, and do you buy into the pass rush concerns? Center?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the biggest weaknesses, I think the most legitimate weakness is how does the interior line, offensive line shake out? But the biggest perceived weakness is the pass rush because, there's not a lot of confidence in Davenport and you don't have anything consistent behind him. So, those seem like the most obvious two questions that need to be answered, but there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of little questions. That's the whole point of my training camp preview is what are the questions that we're trying to figure out? Like, if Hooker comes out and he can't throw the ball anymore and Kyle Allen's still Kyle Allen, then we're going to have a big question at quarterback too, right? We're going to be really worried about that. So inevitably, a lot of the questions that we have get resolved and we don't really worry about them. But then there's other ones that like maybe we didn't anticipate that show up in training camp. And we're like, oh, last year we were like, oh, they have like 3-4 options at wide receiver X. One of those options is going to stand up. Oh, look, one guy's doing well. Oh, another guy's doing well. And then all of a sudden they all just went, bleh.
Oh, none of them are doing well.
And then you were like, uh-oh, that's a big concern now.
Right.
And that raised near the top. And then Tim Patrick, is a gift.
The laps.
And they lucked out there, right? So, but
the difference though is like there's not that many questions because there's a lot of known commodities, right? There's a lot of, hey, we know this guy's good. We know this guy's good. We know this guy's good. I think cornerback is maybe still, even though I'm on record saying I think this line secondary could be one of the best in the league. There's still big questions there, right? There's still big questions. Okay, DJ Reed is a new piece. That doesn't, just because, he's PFF's 6th ranked cornerback or whatever, just because he was pretty successful when he was lined up opposite Sauce Gardner, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a really, really good number 1 corner. We don't know what Terrion Arnold is going to do in year 2, right? Like, those are still two, I would say, significant question marks. I'm optimistic about both of those players. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean it's going to fall that way.
I have 5 defensive backs in my top 20.
5. So was Terry in there? Oh, no, Meek is probably in there.
And Meek's in there, too.
I'm
probably going to be higher on a Meek than some others, but I don't care.
That's fine.
He's great.
Just to go back to pass rush just for a second. I feel like there needs to be like a little bit of a reality check here, because the Lions have
with
a top
me
5
or with everybody.
The Lions have a top 5 pass rusher.
They do.
That means they don't have a bad pass rush. Period. Exclamation point. Like, can we just enjoy what we have for a second? The Lions haven't had an elite pass rusher since when?
Ziggy? Could you call Ziggy elite?
He's not as good as Aiden, right? Like,
no.
We have to go back to like Robert Porcher.
Yeah, he was good.
That's how rare of a talent the Lions currently have at this position that everyone is freaking out at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Aiden might be the best edge defensive end this franchise has seen.
Right. And so I understand we want more. We need a guy opposite. But, like, don't forget about the guy that we have. Don't forget about the guy that's going to produce, like, at least 15 sacks this year. We've become a little spoiled, I think, where it's just like, well, it's not enough to have 8 Pro Bowlers. We need 10. It's like, okay.
But that's how it is. Like,
right.
The goalposts are constantly getting moved back as we get used to, like, the luxuries that are there, right? And that's fine. That's just how fandom is. Like,
sure,
we've won 2 NFC Norths. That third one should be a given. You know what I mean? Well, I want 5 now. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
right. Of course, you constantly
right.
move it.
So
everything.
Yeah.
With
but I'm
people
with you.
freaking out about
I'm with
pass rush, it's just, let's not forget that they have one of the best pass rushers in the league. When healthy, Aleem McNeil has been one of the better interior pass rushers in the league. Like, there's really good talent there. The depth might not be what you want it to be. The depth might not be what it's at some of the other positions, but they've still got guys that are going to make life hell for the opposing quarterback. Aiden's the best pass rusher in Detroit since the GOAT Willie Young. That is a name I have not heard in a very long time. Good old Willie Young. He's probably out there fishing right now somewhere. Did I get to the other question? Oh, Detroit Fan Man over on YouTube asked, does the league's 30 remaining unsigned second-round picks smell like more collusion? Should we be concerned about Tate? No, this happens every year.
Yeah.
And I don't think this has gone on particularly longer than any previous year, has it?
No, they were signing guys. Last year was a little earlier. I think it was mid-July. They signed a couple guys. The year before, they were signing guys like as training camp was about to start.
Right.
Like they came in when the rookies reported and were signing deals like right then. So, or maybe it was the year before that. It was one of the more recent years. But yeah, this is once one domino starts to fall, then in the league, then the rest of them tend to follow.
Yeah. Any non-Cleveland Browns domino is when things get started. Line Blood 20. When do you expect Lions to start considering Goff's replacement? Will it have to be a rookie with the way it's built for the cap reason? Will it have to be a rookie with the way it's built now for cap reasons?
No, it doesn't have to be. It makes it easier for sure. Goff is only, what did we say? We figured it out the other day. He's only
31?
like, yeah, like, so you're talking like, you're not talking anytime soon to really consider a replacement unless he has given you an indication that
30.
he only plays, a certain amount of time. So
it's really hard to say, right? Because like, I do think we're talking more like 6-7 years down the road than we are 3 or 4,
probably,
but potentially. And so it's hard to know what the Lions cap situation is going to be like that far down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Will they be in a good enough situation where if it just so happens, I don't know, I'm going to throw out a random name that, who's a youngish quarterback that could be ready to make a run at a Super Bowl?
Hendon Hooker.
No.
Oh.
Somewhere else.
I mean, he might get a Super Bowl this year. You never know.
J.J. McCarthy. Frustrated with a decade of losing in Minnesota. Does he want to come to Detroit for a year or two? And you spend, I don't know, whatever the average salary is for a quarterback in 6 years, $150 million a year or whatever it is. Yeah. Sign him to a 1-year, $150 million deal. But yeah, I think we're talking like at least 5 years down the line.
It feels like it, right?
Yeah.
Unless he's like, hey, I can live off my wife's supermodel money. I mean, that wasn't enough for Brady, but maybe it'll be enough for Goff. You never know.
If Goff actually cares about being a dad, is that what you're saying?
Oh, man. Jeez.
I don't know.
2 Super Bowls. If the Lions win 2 Super Bowls with Goff, is he a Hall of Famer?
I talked about this and turned it into a social clip. I mean, if you throw one MVP in there, I think the answer is yes. I wonder if there is a case in which there is a quarterback who has won 2 Super Bowls that is not been named MVP?
Ben? Was
Is he
Ben
eligible
MVP
yet?
in one of those? Oh, I don't know. But
He
I
might
don't
not
know.
be
Was he MVP?
I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, if you're a quarterback that wins 2 Super Bowls,
Mm-hmm.
is there someone who is eligible for the Hall of Fame that has not made it? Jim Plunkett? Is that true?
I don't know.
But the argument I made a couple weeks back is Goff has already led 2 number 1 offenses under 2 different teams under 2 different offensive coordinators. If he does that again under new offensive coordinator, you like he is no longer an offensive coordinator merchant. But Eli's going to get in, right?
I think Eli will.
Yeah.
There's some style points to Eli's Super Bowls. Plus, it's New York, so.
And it's a Manning. Like that's going to help his last name, whether you want to admit it or not. It is.
Yeah, I mean, but Arch is almost in, almost a lock, right?
Yeah, that's right. But anyways, yeah, with Goff, like he already deserves a ton of credit for leading 2 number 1 offenses under 2 different teams. If he does it again under another offensive coordinator, it's another, notch in his belt. If he wins the Lions a Super Bowl, that's already going to put him. I think it's going to put him into the conversation. I don't think it gets him in, but the third one.
Ben Roethlisberger has not won MVP.
No.
He never won the MVP, but he won 2 Super Bowls.
I think he probably gets in though.
We'll see. If he doesn't, it could be for reasons beyond football.
Was Eli Manning ever an All-Pro? It certainly wasn't an MVP, right? Never an All-Pro. 4-time Pro Bowler.
Never an All-Pro? How is that?
Because he was never that good. He's always just fine.
He was a Super Bowl MVP twice. That's not nothing.
Right. I think...
You only won 4 Pro Bowls? Holy
here's
shit.
my hot take. I don't think Super Bowl MVP should matter on your Hall of Fame resume.
It's all part of the style points.
Right.
Like it was him that won them those games essentially, right? And so
you're giving a guy credit for 1 game performance.
no, it's a big game. I'm just saying how I think they anticipate. I'm anticipating how people will view him.
Yeah. No question.
Plus, he's on TV and he's funny.
He is on TV. I'll give you that.
You don't think Eli? I think Eli is funny. I think he's funnier than Peyton, which is.
I'm just getting sick of them both. I'm becoming a crotchety old man myself when it comes to the Mannings. Damian Smith, £5 donation on YouTube for Super Chat says, besides Hutchinson, comeback player of the year, defensive player of the year, who else do you think has a good candidate for an end of season award?
I almost asked that question in Reacts because I was almost along. Mm-hmm. It was exploring questions along those lines.
Yeah.
Because the Reacts are sponsored by FanDuel, so it makes it a lot easier for me to ask questions that can be supported by their platform.
Yeah.
So
Panay offensive line award, the new offensive line award.
That might. Yeah. I wonder if people will balk against that, but yes.
By the way, I recently found out that it's the AP is not voting for that one. It's like a panel of former offensive linemen. It's just
the Schwartzes and Brandon Thorne.
Yeah, that's right. Duke Manyweather.
Right.
Throw them all in there.
Gibbs winning offensive player of the year is a low key one, but
Yep.
they have him ranked like fourth or something like that. Like he's
Fourth best
way
odds?
up there.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll double check, but
He was the first one that came to mind for me. I mean, golf MVP is on the table, right?
yeah, but he's way down there. Like there's
Yeah.
like if you like odds, like he's got good odds. Like you get good odds on that. But
This wasn't a betting question necessarily.
no. But they asked like who's.
Yeah.
But I think the odds help give you some perspective.
Sure.
On what they're thinking. All right, awards.
Do you think anyone else on defense has a chance to win it? Because I feel like if Kirby was going to win it, like last year was the year, there wasn't an outstanding pass rusher that was like the clear pick.
Right, and he was like fourth or something like that, right?
Yeah,
wasn't he?
Something like that.
So like, what's interesting is, so Goff is
sixth. He was sixth.
11th. Okay. Goff is 11th for MVP, which is surprising. It's all quarterbacks, of course, but like Lamar, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Jaden Daniels. Those are your top 5. Then Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Stroud, Purdy, Jordan Love, all ahead of Jared Goff. I was very kind of surprised by that. So, offensive player of the year, Gibbs is actually third best odds.
By the way, because we just mentioned his name and I had Twitter up, broken news from Kirby Joseph, who says, "I made the NFL top 100. How do I find a link?" Somebody comment that. No one has told Kirby Joseph that they haven't gotten to him yet in the countdown. They're doing this thing where they're like announcing 2 a day, which, Jesus, they're really stretching that out. But in case you're wondering, I don't even know where we are.
They're at 95.
Yeah, I'm trying to maybe announce NFL Top 100 2025. So 100 was Ladd McConkey, 99 was Leonard Williams, Seahawks defensive lineman. Aaron Jones was 98, much to the chagrin of Ryan Matthews, who doesn't like him and thinks you and I overrate Aaron Jones. Drake London, 97, Levante David, 96, Josh Sweat, 95. That's all that have been revealed so far. Kirby's going to make the list, obviously, apparently.
Well, when you're an all-pro,
Yeah.
chances are you're going to make the list.
Maybe that's a good question of the day.
How many top 100 players should the Lions have?
How many should they, will they have?
Important.
Oh, never mind. Let's see if we can name them right now. You think Goff makes it? I think Goff is going to make it after this past year.
Okay.
And it's worth pointing out that these lists are handed out towards the end of the season. So like him,
he was rolling.
His bad performance in the Washington game is not going to affect his rating. Goff, Gibbs, right? Gibbs is in.
Yep.
Amon-Ra in.
Yep.
Panay.
Laporta?
Ooh, Laporta's a tough
Laporta
one.
should make it.
I think. I'm not sure about Laporta.
Made the Pro Bowl.
I also don't know what you do with Frank Ragnow. Do they just
Do
throw
they
his name out and everyone bumps up a list?
That might be. Decker made the Pro Bowl, but probably not.
Decker's not being in it. Hutch.
Mm.
Aleem?
Should.
Aleem's going to be tough too. There's going to be at least 6 because Kirby's going to make it too. But then you have Branch, you have Aleem, you have Laporta. Like it could get up to 9, but I think it's either going to be 5 or 6. Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Panay, Kirby, Hutch. I think those are givens. 6. And then you have Branch. Then you have Laporta.
Branch if Branch doesn't make it, I'm going to be shocked.
I don't think Branch is going to make it.
Well, people are dumb.
It's stats, right? He doesn't have the stats.
He was what, third in interceptions or something like that. I don't know if he finished the season that way, but
he didn't.
But if people want to look at the PFF scores, PFF really liked him. If you want to watch him with your own eyes, you can really like him.
I can't wait to see where you have Branch compared to the rest of the staff when it comes to our overall rankings.
I bet I've influenced enough people to have Branch very high.
I could literally look right now, I suppose.
I debated between.
Oh, I didn't mention
where
Sewell.
I have
Sewell's a lock. Does that make it 7 are a lock? Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra. No, I said Panay. Kirby, Hutch. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
How am I doing?
I just saw where everyone ranked Branch. Pretty consistent, I would say. I'm not sure. I haven't started my rankings yet, but that seems a little high. Just a little.
All right.
Chat, what would you rank? We're going to get back to the show in a second here. But I want to see your top 5. Top 5 Lions players for 2025. Very curious to the debate. We'll see. Should I cut maybe this year I'll cut the top 10 in half. We'll go 90 to 81, 80 to 71, et cetera, but then we go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We got time.
Stretch it. Content. Sewell, Hutch, Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kirby Joseph. That seems reasonable. Goff, Gibbs, Brown, Hutch, Panay. Is that in reverse order? Sewell, St. Hutch, Gibbs, Goff. I think there's going to be a Goff debate, whether he's a top 5 player. I think there's a Branch debate to be had. I mean, it's hard though. I mean, there's a Kirby debate. I think there is a reasonable debate to have on who the best safety on the team is.
I rank them right next to each other. They are in lockstep.
Oh, we got a JMO in the top 5. Ooh. Jack in the conversation next year, says Twin. Maybe. Gibbs number 1 according to RN. Interesting. There's a pretty good, we're talking about the same 5, 6, 7 names here. But the order's very interesting and very varied. Very varied. I like this. I don't even think I've seen a Laporta, and he probably deserves to be part of the conversation as well. Exactly, Q Note. I've never had this hard of a time choosing the Lions' top 5 players. Good news.
I felt like the first 9 were I thought we're all going to be pretty similar.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are going to have the same kind of top 9. And then I prioritized leadership a little earlier than I think other people are. And so I have some guys I have a guy in my top 10 and then a couple spots, 11, 12 that I really leaned in on leadership versus like upside.
Gotcha. Alex Anzalone. Got it.
I bet I have him higher than ever anybody. I'm gonna look now, but no, holy cow, it's closer than I thought.
Here's a fun note that Ryan just shared in our Slack. Desktop. Whoops, that didn't work. Madden, you can choose your coaching type, and the face of the developmental wizard is one Dan Campbell. Which, interested in.
Who's that offensive guru? Does that look like Benzier?
No, I don't think so. That's Todd Bowles, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, it literally says it right here. It's Andy Reid.
Oh, perfect. I couldn't see it.
Yeah. Why does he not give anything to personnel development? What does that even mean? What's the difference between personnel development and player development? What does that mean?
Let your coaches develop players.
I don't get it. What were you saying about Anzalone?
Full bars across the board.
That's right.
I said Anzalone is a little closer to my prediction than I was assuming.
Now I need to see where you have him. Okay. I thought he might literally be the 9 guy that you were talking about. Now I need to know. I haven't made my list. I shouldn't be getting influenced by your guys' lists. All right, we should get back into it. Let's finish the show here, and if you guys have more questions, we can get to them when we're done with this segment. Let me pull up my list of questions, figure out where we left off. Page 2, perfect. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Midweek Mailbag, here answering your questions. If you want to join us, you can always join us live, I should say. Make sure you're following us on YouTube and Twitch. Get alerts every time we go live. We answer a bunch of questions during the breaks. So a lot more bonus content if you're just listening to us on audio. But let's jump right back into the questions here. Polar Polish asks, what is a long-term need that isn't an issue in the next couple of years, but might be addressed in next year's draft?
Well, I could take the easy route and just say edge rusher because that's always going to be a need, right?
Sure.
And but I guess maybe that doesn't qualify because it maybe is a need in the next couple years. Yeah. Linebacker. I think linebacker, right? You re-signed Derrick Barnes. You still have Jack on his rookie contract, but he's eligible for an extension. And you haven't made a decision on Alex Anzalone, and so you might be able to get by for a couple years, but it's a position that you might need a starter at 3 years from now. So, or not even 2 years from now, but that's I think one that people would be surprised about, but is something that we probably need to start paying attention to. Offensive tackle.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen with Gio, and Decker is one of the older players on the roster.
Yeah.
You don't really have a good answer in place. Like with Graham, you at least you're developing Frazier, you have a Guakin, you have like guys that you're have in place right now.
Right.
But yeah, tackle and linebacker, offensive tackle and linebacker are two needs that are going to be maybe higher priorities than people are thinking.
Yeah. The only other guy I can think of, and it goes back to our first segment conversation, like running back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think you need to draft a David Montgomery replacement until he's actually gone. Because,
right.
you can fill in a rookie running back relatively easy, or at least, compared to other positions. But
Right.
if there's like a guy that you like in the 4th round and you think eventually he could play that role, like I wouldn't mind dipping your toe into the running back pool next offseason. Other than that, I don't know really if there's that much. Depending on the future of JMO, right? Like there could be another wide receiver dip. Not to bring that debate up for the 100th time on a podcast, but it's interesting because, and it's good because we're playing this game and we're thinking about problems 3 or 4 years down the line in terms of the roster, and it's hard to come up with answers like that.
Right.
You have to realize that's not normal. If you look at any roster, you should be able to poke holes in what the future looks like in several positions when you get, 3-4 years is an eternity in the NFL.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're like, hey, I want to do some summer scouting.
Yeah.
Tackle, linebacker, edge, running back.
There you go.
Good
All
spots to start.
Yep. Speaking of cornerback, we didn't mention cornerback, but let's talk about cornerbacks. Dr. Frederick Coco asks, I continue to hear comments that people want Rakestraw to take over the starting nickel role over Amik. Am I imagining things, or did the coaching staff already say he's going to be outside? They did. But I think the reason I brought up this question is I do think it's worth the debate whether that's the right move. Because when you have a 2nd round draft pick, I think the expectation or the hope is that guy is going to be a starter at some point. And they just signed DJ Reed to a 3-year deal.
Yep.
You drafted a 1st round corner last year. There is not a path for Ennis Rakestraw to start on the outside unless there's an injury or unless he just beats out one of those guys. So I think the frustration, the reason you probably continue to hear those comments, there's a much easier path for Rakestraw to start at nickel as early as this year, if not next year, because Amik is as good as he's been. He's only signed through this season.
Yeah. My guess, again, just speculation, is that they're going to keep him on the outside because they feel like he didn't get enough experience out there and they need him to be position flexible, and that they will start adding nickel back onto his plate as the season progresses, or maybe even in training camp. But when I heard them say they were going to want to keep him on the outside, the way it registered to me was he needs more experience on the outside, and we're just going to drill that into his head and just get him that experience. And then we'll see. I agree. He's suited well for nickel. But what makes Amik so unique is that he can play inside outside. And if you want Rakestraw to be able to do that, he's got to learn. You got to make sure that he's up to speed on the outside. Yeah.
You brought up Amik, and I think that's the perfect example of, I think, what they want him to look like. Because that Amik became a fan favorite towards the end of last year, not because he was doing so well at nickel. It was because when he jumped out and had to play against Justin Jefferson on the outside, he did a phenomenal job. And so if you can, having a guy like that is extremely, extremely valuable. We talk about position versatility all the time, and coaches talk about it all the time, but the Lions live it in a way that previous coaches haven't, in that they cross-train almost everybody at every position, particularly on defense, right? Your interior defensive linemen can play on the edge. Your edges can play on the interior. Your linebackers can play all 3 linebackers positions. Your corners can play all 3 corner positions. Your safeties can play in the box or they can play deep. Your offensive linemen can play tackle or guard. Like, they cross-train like crazy. And I think you're right in that, yes, they are saying, hey, stick to the outside Ennis, but that is just the start, right? That is just the start of his development. That's probably where they view him needing the most development. So just stick to that. Once you've figured that out, then we're going to start bringing in some of the nickel stuff. And they do that a lot with some of their players, where it's just like, oh, we got to scale things back. They're a little too much on your plate to start. Let's focus on one thing. expand to another thing. That's what I think is going on here, for sure. And so the people that are pushing for him to be nickel, I'm kind of one of them, admittedly, because there's that path to him starting sooner rather than later. Be patient, because I don't think it's out of the question yet. All right, next question. Speaking of a versatile player, this is a better transition because it's actually true. Derrick Barnes is the subject of our next question from Jack Henry. Says, Barnes check-in, is he 100% healthy? How will his return shape the linebacker unit as a whole?
So he's should be 100% healthy. He was expected to be ready, in January at some point. So now here we are in July. You're making that assumption that he's fully ready. How he shapes the linebacker room is he brings back a true Sam in the way they want to utilize it. A guy that can play, allows you to play Sam up to 50% of the time if you wanted to. He also has the ability to play both Mike and Will. So if you have an injury or you need to spell a guy, you have that flexibility with Derrick. And he also helps cover the loss of Malcolm for the first couple of months because his ability to, like, again, back up and contribute in multiple ways. So it gives them a luxury at the position to be able to do a lot more things than they were limited to last year, and a lot more reassurances that they have a steady room as opposed to one that they're grabbing guys off practice squads and trying to fit.
Yeah, and with him, Barnes, I think, is maybe the most versatile linebacker they have. He can do kind of everything. It might be a situation where it's like he's a jack of all trades, master of none in a way, but he gives you enough as a pass rusher, enough as a guy that drops into coverage, enough as a run defender, enough as an edge setter, that you can utilize him in so many ways to keep the offense guessing. That, to me, his biggest value is unpredictability. And that is a very nice weapon to have as a defensive coordinator, to have a guy that's out there that you don't know what he's going to do. He could pass rush, he could drop into coverage, he could do this, he could do that. And, everyone tries to do that with all their linebackers, right? You want to have those guys that they can threaten up the middle and threaten like they're going to shoot the A gap and drop into coverage and be fine. But I think Barnes is the most capable of doing that, and that makes him the most unpredictable, which, again, is a big weapon to have. He still has to prove a lot of this, right? Like, this is very much more concept than proof, considering he only played 3 games last year. But the coaches wouldn't shut up about him, right? They wouldn't stop talking about how valuable and unique of a piece to their defense he was all training camp.
The money backs that up too.
Yes, exactly. And so I do think we still kind of have to see it in practice to know how much it'll change their defense, how much it'll affect their defense. But we certainly know that the coaching staff is very excited about it. And we certainly know that his role was very difficult to replace once he was out.
Yeah, like, if you look at how the roster is composed, Jack's a pure Mike. He can play Sam, but you really don't want to play him at Sam. You want to play Jack at Mike. After that, you've got like 5-6 guys that are probably better at Will that could maybe play Mike if you need them to. And then a couple of Sams that can also play Mike, but maybe not Will. And Derrick's the only guy that can do it all. Like, he can do everything. Like, you've seen it. And so starter snaps at all 3 spots. So it makes him unique. I still look at that money and I wonder if his role could be bigger, even bigger than what I just laid out. Because the money says you're a guy that we expect to be on the field a lot.
Yeah, like at least 85% of the time.
But his history and the position says that number should be closer to like 50.
Right.
Or 60.
Well, but early last year, it was closer to 70-80%.
I do think that came at the expense of Jack a little bit because I think Jack was still kind of acclimating, or they were still being a little bit patient with Jack.
Yeah.
Jack was the one who came off the field. They didn't want to remove Alex. I don't see any way they're moving Jack off the field anymore. I think Jack is their best linebacker. Even though Alex is, incredibly heady and leader and such a leader, and Barnes is incredibly versatile, I'm standing on my hill saying I think Jack Campbell's the best linebacker they have.
All right. Next question here comes from Patrick K, one of our Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers, says, are the Lions finally at a point where the regular season doesn't really matter as long as they are in the playoffs? As fun as it's been to see them win the division, I don't think I'll be too upset if they don't repeat as division champs as long as they're healthier entering the postseason.
I think it matters to them if they are division champs or not. It gives them a confidence and a swagger and a proof of concept that what they're saying, if you do this, the victories will follow. It may not matter because they're a good enough team to win on the road, and not a lot of teams are. Yeah. So maybe home field isn't as big of an advantage, but it's still a big advantage to be home. Like it may not be huge as it will with like some teams. You have to be at home. If you're away, you're in trouble.
Miami Dolphins.
Detroit's not like that. Detroit can win wherever, but being at home in front of that crowd, it really just gives them a little bit extra, I think, to it just, you can see a difference. But I mean, they were 8-0 last year on the road. So,
yeah.
So technically maybe it doesn't matter if they don't win as long as they make the playoffs, but it matters to them. I can tell you that much for sure.
No question. And I think any logical fan, if the choice was 1 seed or you're healthy, everyone's going to take your healthy, I think.
Right.
Especially if you're talking the level of health that the Lions were missing last offseason, or last postseason, I should say. I do think winning the 1 seed is a pretty significant advantage. You have to win 1 fewer playoff game. That alone is huge. I think home field advantage is starting to get a little overrated. Like if you look at the way the league has been trending, especially when you factor in odds and things like that, the home field advantage is just, it's not that much above 50-50 anymore. That said, I wrote this article for Pride of Detroit Direct shortly after the playoffs, just following the 1 seeds over the past 10, 15, 20 years. And it has not been a good road. They're
right.
Like,
let's just win the 2 seed then. We'll take the 2. Win the division, take the 2. Done.
So from my standpoint, obviously you'd prefer to have to win 1 fewer playoff game and be the 1 seed. But I'm kind of in Patrick's boat where I don't care. Just get to the playoffs. Get to the playoffs, and hopefully you're there as healthy as possible. And you never know. Like, you never know what's going to happen in the playoffs. And I know that's something everyone says, but it's true. You could be the 9-7 New York Giants who topple the undefeated New England Patriots. It happens. It happens probably more than you think it happens. So just get in the dance. I know we love topping the division. I know we love raising those banners, but I think everyone at this point is sick of raising non-Super Bowl banners in Detroit.
Well, I'm not sick of it, but I mean, I aspire to it. But
yes,
but I still enjoy all of the banners that go up.
Fair enough. Emmy J is going to close out our podcast, also a Pride of Detroit Direct subscriber, which is a good reminder. Hey, go to pridedetroit.com/subscribe. We do a monthly subscriber-only midweek mailbag, and you get a little bit of priority during these weekly mailbags as well. Emmy asks, every year I heard how the team should be better, but their record might not reflect it. Make an argument why the Lions should go 15-2 this year.
They're better than most teams. They are. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that they're better than, and if you're going to go 15-2, you need luck to fall your way. You need to catch good opponents on days when you can be better than them. An opponent that might be equal on the playing field, like a Philadelphia Eagles. You look like you're pretty evenly matched, but it's a Sunday night game, and all of a sudden, they're not prepared for you. And you come in with the intensity and you get that win, and then you win those games that should be closer to 50-50 pushes, which there are a handful of those on the schedule this year. But if you win the games you should, and you win more of the 50-50 games than win more than you lose, you could end up with 15 wins again. That's how you do it. Having that happen is hard, right. Which is why I think most people are predicting a regression in wins, but it's entirely possible. Anybody can win, right? And these evenly matched opponents maybe won't be evenly matched by the time. You may see a much better Detroit team, and so you never know.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's run down the reasons why everyone is saying, hey, this team might be better than they were last year, but
sure,
the record might not reflect it. The schedule.
Yep.
The increasing division, the losing of both coordinators, Frank Ragnow as well. So those are all reasons for like negative regression, right?
Right.
There's a chance for positive regression too. Particularly when it comes to injuries, right? Mm-hmm. You hope there's a significant positive regression there, hopefully, because there's a lot of room for positive regression there. The Lions weren't particularly unlucky or lucky when it comes to turnovers, like losing fumbles and things like that. That could always swing in their favor. They were good in one-score games, but not great in one-score games. That's another thing that's viewed as like year-to-year kind of fluctuates. I think they were still among the better teams in one-score games, but not crazily so. And then I think there's something to be said about stability. And yes, maybe your coordinators are different, but your roster is not that different. Your roster is filled with what, like 19 of the 2022 starters? Something like that. Either like 18 or 19 of your 22 starters last year returning. There's a proof of concept. There's not to be an expectation of like large fluctuation between the Lions team because they've now put up 2.5 years of very consistent football. And so if you are in contention basically every single week for 2.5 years running, you're going to be in every game. And if you're going to be in every game, you can win 15. You just can. Like if this team is going to be in a position to have a chance to win every single game, they can win 15. Like they have a coach that is going to tip, maybe just fractions of win percentage in their favor. He's going to tip it in their favor because he is one of the more aggressive, most sound coaches making those decisions. And that's the difference in those coin flip games, right? It's just a percentage point here or there. It's the guy that's willing and smart enough to know that, hey, yeah, I could kick a field goal on 4th and 2 to put us up 1 point with 90 seconds left. But if I get the first down, the game's over.
Hey, Green Bay Packers.
And so, like, I just when you think of those little edges to me, I think they add up.
They do. There is it's not something you can measure, but there is merit in this statement that you learn how to win. And this is a team that last year, when it mattered, they had a roster full of people that knew how to win versus other teams that didn't. And those little, experiences that they had, the wins that they amassed, taught them the things that they need to do down the stretch to make sure that they can maintain their success. They bring back 31 players right? They've retained 31 players that they've drafted, cultivated, and developed on this roster. That's 60% of their 53-man roster, essentially, right? And then that's not including new rookies that you're bringing in to increase your talent level, and veterans that you're hoping not only replace guys from last year, but also elevate your talent level as well. So your talent level has a chance to be better. And while it might be weaker in some areas, it's going to be better in even in more areas, right? And then you add in the fact that 60% of the roster is in entering a mindset thinking we should win this game and we know how to win this game. That can carry you.
Yeah.
And that can be the difference in those close games where it comes down to a possession, because that's what happened last year. They won those one possession games that they needed to, and that experience is still on the roster this year. So that'll be huge this year in determining how many wins they get.
LJ B Ruff in our chat says the Lions were 7-2 in one-score games. I see somewhere it says 6-2. Either way, 7-2, 6-2. That does rank them in the top 5. But I think my point being, like, it does, outside of the Texans game, it doesn't feel like they stole that many games. Compare that to the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember their season last year?
Half of them. Yeah.
11-0 in one-score games. Even the Vikings were 8-1. So
I mean, they have a history of, they were like 10-1 2 years before that or something like that, right? Ridiculous.
So I don't know. I just think in general the talk of regression, negative regression, has dominated the conversation around the Lions, while some of the signs of positive regression have been overlooked. I still don't think they're going to go 15-2, but I'm also
it's
not
really hard to do.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
that's kind of like the overall line there too. Is like you can have the best team clearly in the NFL, and you're probably going to lose 2 games at least, probably 3
at least. Yeah.
Anyways, we'll close things out there. We will be back with the main POD cast probably on Monday. We'll be back with another midweek mailbag next week right here on the POD cast feed. And we'll have more goodies for you over on Pride of Detroit Direct as well if you're a subscriber. But until then, for Erik Schlitt, I don't know which way you're that way. I'm Jeremy Reisman. Thank you all for listening. It's Chaos. Be kind.
Recording stopped.
Hey, Mary. Had to get my dig in on. I mean, what you were describing was the second meeting against Green Bay, where they had a chance on Sunday Night Football or on Thursday Night Football. They had a chance, right? And the Al Michaels like, I don't know why they're not kicking it here. And remember, we were in the press box going, oh, they're not going. They're absolutely going for this. They're not going to kick.
No.
Yeah. When I went back and we had zero doubt they were going for it. And then when we went back and watched the broadcast, it was like, what are they doing?
It like that is a move that I think most teams won't make, and I'm not like gonna sit here and say I don't remember what the analytical models said of it. I think it was probably pretty mixed, but I just love that the chaos of that moment was only amplified by the fact that Goff got stepped on.
Oh yeah,
and almost didn't get the playoff.
Graham always adding the drama,
right? And actually my favorite part beyond that were all the Packers fans are like, oh, Goff's knee was down. He was down. And it's like, oh, so you don't know the rule book. Cool.
There's a lot of Vikings fans that said that too.
True.
That's what I remember.
Yes. Good old Vikings fans who have just absolutely lost their mind in the past 2 years. Not all of them. But like
enough of them.
I remember watching, and I don't remember what year it was. I went to a Vikings game in Minnesota, a Lions-Vikings game, and the Lions won it like 12-6. It was like this crazy defensive battle. I remember walking out of that stadium like kind of like fearful. Anytime you're an away game and your team wins, you're mad. You're little like walking on eggshells walking out of that stadium because you're gonna have a lot of angry drunk fans. And they were the nicest people in the world. They were like, oh man, like I'm so I'm so happy for you, Lions. Like, you're playing competitive football now. Like, that was a really fun game. Like, everyone was just the nicest to me. And I also should preface this might just be the difference between living life in person versus living life online.
Yes.
But, like, Vikings fans online in the past 2 years have just been some of the most vile, vitriolic, angry people I've seen on the internet. And they seem to be taking it all out on Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, they blame Kirby for everything. They think Kirby's the Antichrist.
That certainly has not helped.
But yeah, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Speaking of Green Bay, I'm excited to see the Steelers come to town.
Yeah. They're certainly doing things over there.
This all-in approach that they have, I don't see that as much as all-in as I was looking at their roster and I'm like, man, there's a good roster in 2020.
It almost feels like an all-in to finally win a playoff game, and that's it.
Oh.
Because I look at that roster and I'm like, that does not look like a Super Bowl roster to me. Does it look like a team that could win a playoff game? Yeah, probably. And they haven't done that in 7 years.
I hope they implode. I will just laugh the whole way. It's a shame. I used to like the Steelers. Dealing away Minka. I know like people are soured on him for what he did the back half of last year, but I don't know. Minka's a good he's pretty good.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted by something.
Can we get a booth?
What?
LJ says, can we get a booth cam for me and you in the booth? And then do some cut-ups like they do for Dan Miller.
Ooh. Like, this is not a terrible idea. There's part of me that's like, if the game is close, 2 minutes left, like just like start recording on my phone. I don't know how I can get a camera angle that'll have both of us in it.
Yeah.
But I don't hate the idea, and I think it would be a fun Pride of Detroit Direct like bonus.
People can watch you beat me.
Let me think about that, and maybe I'll play around in the preseason to see if I can find angles that.
Oh, there's no angle. There's no angle.
No.
Like, no. We have an entire booth to record our post game, and even then, we still have to like get like shoulder to shoulder to do those recordings. To have that thing, to have the phone against, like, we don't get a whole lot of reach. Like, it's basically an arm's length is what we get. So
I'm thinking though, like if I can put it to our side enough that it would like
if there was no one sitting next to me or something like that.
Well, we might get that person too.
Just have Paula hold it. Just have Paula hold it.
Just have Paula recording us.
Paula, I know this is an intense moment, but just hold this for a minute. Thanks, Paula. I know you're like super important and you've been doing this for decades and decades and decades, but hold this phone.
What's up, Brett? Thanks for the 17-month subscribe to us on Twitch. Says, can you guys give us a in-depth Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson breakdown? No. I did recognize LeVert's name from Michigan, but I couldn't tell you a thing about him.
Did Duncan Robinson play Michigan too? I recognize the name Duncan is an unusual name. That's why I'm gonna have to rely on.
Oh, they both did. Okay, there you go.
There you go.
That's why you're asking? Well, there you go. That was our breakdown, is that we were both vaguely familiar that they played.
What I remember about Karis LeVert is he had some ups. He could like jump out of the building. That's what I remember. Unless I'm thinking of somebody different. But that's what I remember about LeVert, is that he could like put $1 on the top of the backboard type of guy.
Okay. When you said he can put $1 on something, I got nervous.
A quarter.
We don't we don't need players putting money on anything right now, okay? That is the one thing we don't need.
We're running out of time quick, Brett.
Man,
it's not much.
Some of the stuff that's coming out on Beasley now, like that story's going quickly from like super, like fans, I think, or at least I'm going from like super angry to like, oh, this is sad now. Like this guy has a legitimate problem, which is not great. But I guess in order to bet on your own prop bets, you probably have to have a pretty serious gambling problem already.
Yeah.
Kick Puncher, they have announced the dates that are open to fans. Yes. They've announced the reporting dates.
Reporting dates for rookies are the 16th, veterans on the 19th, and the first open practice to fans. I don't know if it's, I think it might be season ticket holders, is the 26th. Mm-hmm. But then
rookies report in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And then they do, I think it's season ticket holders on the 26th, general public 28th.
There you go. Why is that popping up? Weird. Anything else? Mary said she'll hold the camera for us.
Who will?
So push-ups. Mary.
Nice. Mary's been around, as a season ticket holder long enough that they probably let her up in the press box.
Is that how it works? If you've been a season ticket long enough?
Yeah. If you're a social media influencer and a season ticket holder like Mary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that would be. I still think that would be a very tough angle.
Yeah.
I also don't think that. Typically in tight games, you get a little bit tied up, and I get a little bit loose, and I get like weird squirrely. Like I don't get. It's a very. And I laugh.
Absolutely silent. I'm just...
And then I try to make you talk, which doesn't help because that is just me.
Yep. I would say the amount that you talk to me in during a tight game in the last 5 minutes of that tight game, the amount that like actually I comprehend and hear, probably less than 10%. Like I'm just like, I don't need to hear you right now.
Sometimes I just talk through it. That's how I get. That's how you get the uncomfortableness. You just talk through it. Inevitably, I always make a prediction on what I think they should do. I think that's why you tune me out, because you're like, you don't want to hear what I think they should do. You just want to see what they'll do.
Accurate.
Because like 90% of the time, I'm like, Texas route. No,
you're not wrong.
No, it's not 90, but.
Here comes the Josh Reynolds route. Here comes the Josh Reynolds back of the end zone.
Dude, it's because they do like four things and they all work. Yeah, when they line up.
This is something we also might have to run past the lines. I don't know if you can film
I don't know.
The media room.
But like some of the TV guys do. They do the little selfies, but that's ahead of the game.
Yeah.
They do it from the hallway, from the walkway, right?
I'm fairly certain we couldn't live stream.
No,
but we wouldn't do that. No. That's one of those things where I'm like, I'm kind of afraid to ask, and I kind of want to just do it, and then if they tell us to stop doing it, we'll stop doing it. Because if I ask, I think there's a greater chance of them saying no and us not doing it.
If they had an issue, one issue that I think they might have,
I already know,
is that
the people behind us.
The people behind us are usually the opponent's front office, and
plus, like, we're also
it's
incriminating ourselves, because you're not supposed to cheer in the press box, and if we just publish video of us kind of cheering in the press box, aren't we jeopardizing our thing?
People would see that. People would see that we just like silently scream inside. We're just like, and then you start punching me. That's kind of what happens.
It is
like
what happens.
We just we take all of our emotions and we just push it down.
Yes.
Just
turn it into kinetic energy into your shoulder.
The nice thing is the people behind us, it's an elevated platform. It's an elevated. So it's like if we put it on the little bar there,
probably wouldn't catch.
I don't think it would. Yeah, I think it'd be too tough an angle, because you can stand all the way up and still be. It's like a 6-foot wall.
Yeah,
at least. So
we just what we need. We need to contact Apple, who are constantly watching through the camera in our laptops. Just ask them for that footage.
That's true. We could hit record on them. On the computers.
We just have to, like, if we had like a video editor on staff, we just turn on the cameras of both of our laptops towards the end of the games, and somehow eventually like sync them and side by side box them like we're doing right now.
Cut back and forth.
That's right. I just said we can't stream it, chat.
It'd be fun if you could, though.
There's no live streaming at all allowed until the game's over. Breakthroughs. Okay. A Quarter, thank you for the 33-month subscribe to the channel. Says, so ready for football to start. Like I said, rookies report in 2 weeks. Summer's almost over. Even though it literally just started.
No.
I went and saw the Lions PR director perform last week.
Yeah.
He and Neil, who's one of the guys that work on the video team, they have a little 2-person band that they do some live shows with, and I spoke with them briefly, and I'm like, I told Eamon, the PR director, I was just like, man, I'm starting to lose it. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm kind of ready for summer to be over. He's like, don't you ever say that again.
I didn't go, and started to do a podcast with Joe, and realized I didn't hit record, and so then we just stopped and we just talked.
No,
yeah, we were a bit into it, and then I was like, I haven't been recording us, and I was like, so we're just gonna chat, and we just caught up.
Like 2 months, and you just forgot how to hit the button.
Yep.
Oh, Erik, I felt a Pride of Detroit direct subscriber emailed me about your podcast. He's like, hey, why isn't it? And I was like, oh, don't worry, he's got one coming up. He was recording on. I didn't respond to him, but I was thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, well, he's gonna be surprised because there's gonna be a new episode out.
Yep.
In a day or two.
Technology got the best of me.
I've still not decided, Damien, whether I'm going to go to the Hall of Fame game or not.
I have been shifting stuff around to maybe be able to go.
Okay.
I've been trying. So.
Well, if you're going to go, then I will go. But
I've been
I'm back
shuffling
and forth on it.
because I want to know if there's something other than the game, then I'm interested. Like if there was something else, like I know the Hall of Fame would be fun to go to, right?
Yeah.
And go there and like check that out. But like, I don't know if it's just a preseason game and it's just going to be like third and fourth stringers.
Right, which it is.
It's a little harder to justify.
Yeah. At
Although
first, go ahead.
I did look up the trip. It's not as far as I thought, so that's
Yeah.
good.
It's short. It's drivable.
Yeah,
Theoretically, it could be a drive in that morning, drive out that night. Type of thing.
driving out that night will be hard because it's an 8 o'clock start.
Yeah.
So getting the game and then the locker room and whatever, like it's still going to be early morning hours, and then to try and make a 4 hour, 3.5, 4 hour drive home. I don't know. I don't know if I.
But I feel like that's also maybe the worst time to go see the the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Like there's going to be a crap ton of people there.
Right. Nope. You're not wrong.
So I don't know. I haven't decided yet. At first I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to go. I've never been to the Hall of Fame. Like, let's do it. It's a unique opportunity. But no lines are getting inducted. I feel like if I'm going to go, it should probably be a one-day thing. And if it's a one-day thing, am I even going to have time to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Or am I just driving a long way to see a preseason game? And if that's the case, like, why?
Right. Yeah. My middle daughter has it's the opening night of her play. And my oldest is at camp, overnight camp, and then my youngest is going to be going to grandma's. And so all three of my kids are accounted for. Excuse me. So like there's an opportunity for me to be like, hey, I could make the drive.
Right.
It'd just be, I don't know if I will gain anything. And I don't know if the reader would benefit from me going. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's where it gets tricky.
Right.
If it was something where I was like, oh, this is a unique angle, this is something we're going to learn, then yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think it's probably time to get out of here. Thanks for everybody for hanging out with us this morning. You guys all have a very safe and fun 4th of July. Eat a lot of hamburgers, fewer hot dogs, because hamburgers are always a better option.
And some brats.
Yeah.
Brats are my choice.
I can agree with that. Go get brats. Skip the hot dogs entirely.
Be fancy. Get the kind that have like the jalapeno injections.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Beer cheese and whatever.
Yeah. Go fancy.
Go treat yourself. And yes, please be safe out there. We'll see you guys Monday evening unless things change, most likely. But otherwise, have a great weekend, everybody.